Let's talk about some of the policies and programs in the outgoing year, 2024, and then what are the projections for 2025. This is very important because of the economic realities that the nation is facing at the moment. And with me in the studio is our frontline civil society and environmental economic activist. I'd like to welcome the Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice, Reverend David Ogolo. Reverend, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Mr. D.
So it's a delight to have you.
Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
And a prosperous new year ahead.
Exactly.
Okay, the new year is 1 year people are waiting to see happen with a huge expectations in terms of the status of the economy. But let's talk about 2024. We've seen a situation wherein the economic downturn is at its highest level. Quality of life of Nigerians has dipped. Resources are not there. And a whole lot of things that has checkered 2024. What are your thoughts along those lines?
Thank you, Mr. Duke. Thanks again for inviting me to join in reviewing this year that has few days. Just about 1 or 2 days, we'll be talking about 2025. 2024 has its up and down, and particularly when we looked how the people felt the impact of major economic policy that was made by President Tinubu government. Particularly when you look, one driver for the economy for Nigeria is the oil price, the petrol price. The petrol price was very unstable. It went to the highest level, and that you can see the impact in terms of how it has impacted negatively on people's income. Price inflation was at the highest, and that again put the common man on the street in a very disadvantaged position. And the power of our currency compared to other international currency was not also something that one can look with joy. And so when you look those parameters, and a major source of income for the country is oil, and the international price, the crisis going on in Ukraine also affected the whole oil price internationally. And so technically speaking, if you look the economy back to Nigeria, the insecurity in our rural area also made it impossible for our rural farmers to be able to go to farming, and that affected the food stuff that was coming out from rural communities to the urban places. And so putting all those variables together, you can see that most people are not so happy. And then when you see the number of cars that goes out daily has also reduced because of the high cost of petrol, and that has affected the number of people who are able to take their car out. And that, for me, is something that needs to be considered as we are entering into the 2025. But environmentally speaking, the less number of cars that use petrol, the better for the environment in the long run, because we're all talking about moving to transitioning away from fossil fuel to a more green motor-driven process. But how we do that, government policy will really help to drive those kind of transition. And economically, in terms of an employment level in the country, is also very poor. Access to job became very difficult within this period. And because in a society where innovation slowed down, it's difficult for you to see job available, because the number of jobs that are available is a function of the innovation, function of what is happening. Let's take Benin as a classical example. In the last 2 or 3 years, if you look around Benin, what can you see that have sprung up that you think is innovative? The only thing you see around in Benin that you can point to is hotel, beer parlor, and drinking spot, or clubhouse. And you can easily relate all these to one single source of income that is coming from either foreign remittance into the country or revenue source that you cannot easily define how it came in. And so when you look these kind of areas that you see, you think that the economy is functioning, how many people are able to work in a clubhouse? How many people are able to work in the hotel? And so things has not been very in a good state. So the economy has not been very functioning very well. And the drivers, what I say, the drivers, who are those controlling the revenue of government? When you see the political elite in the country, what really drives them? What are they investing their money in? You look around, it's nothing that will really generate innovation. And in any society where there is no innovation, you cannot talk about growth. There is a correlation between innovation and growth. The more you have innovation, the more you have growth. If you look in America or look other European countries, if you look at the economic growth, you can easily relate it to the kind of manufacturing industry that is growing. But if you look in Benin City, for example, it's the major city in Edo State. You go to Auchi, another major city. You go to Ekpoma. The driver for Ekpoma, for example, is the university. If you go to Auchi, it's the Polytechnic. If you come to Benin, for example, it's Uniben and Co. What other things that drive economic growth in Benin? You look around, I said, you can see, you can point to the hotel, you can point to the drinking bar, you can point to the clubhouse. And how these contribute to the economy is still difficult to understand. And in terms of job employment, they can't employ enough people because how many people could a clubhouse employ?
But these systems or structures, they pay taxes to government.
Most cases, you know, the tax payment system in Nigeria is in a very bad state because the lack of transparency, because the political elite don't pay tax. The political elite don't pay tax. Even their business don't pay tax. And this is really the difficult situation. And that's why we're calling for transparency and accountability in the tax system. And because without transparency and accountability, that's why people don't understand that this whole fight against corruption, it's in the interest of the citizen, it's in the interest of the government. But, you know, the government has to start with first disclosure. The reason why government don't like disclosing is because they don't disclose because they don't really depend on tax. Most states, including Edo State, they depend on monthly allocation coming from Abuja. It's oil revenue, so they don't care. Because if government are to depend on the tax people pay, they won't even be able to even pay the workers. And that's a really difficult situation. So these monthly allocations that comes into states across Nigeria has made the states to be so weak, and that the capacity to generate local tax, apart from Lagos State and few states that are able to have their internal generated revenue increased. And there's lack of transparency. But what we are saying is that there should be transparency around those issues. Putting it in perspective, the year 2024 has not been rosy.
Okay.
And it's not just Nigeria alone. If you look at the global economy, growth has not been very encouraging.
Okay.
And the forces responsible for that, the Ukraine war, because as a result of the Ukraine war and Russia, grain that's supposed to be coming to Africa were not coming. And that contributed to the crisis of not having some of these things, foodstuff price increased, and then the price of oil, that also created the problem. So putting all those, the global economy has not been encouraging. It's not just only Nigeria. But back home, the politics within 2024. Now, the politics is also something you need to also put your searchlight on. The oppositions are not playing their right role. The kind of politics we play in Nigeria, if you win, you get everything. That's not how it is done. Look at the US, for example. When the Democrats were in power, Elon Musk, who was one of the richest men who have benefited from the economy under Democrat-led government, was able to make a swift, because of ideological issue, to support a Republican. And Donald Trump won the election. And nothing affected his business. But if you are in Edo State, can you do that? If the governor of Edo State says that you raise these fundamental questions about his governance system, be rest assured that the next thing, your business
maybe
the CFO of the land,
yeah,
where your business is located, will be questioned.
Okay.
And so that kind of politics played by even governors, played by government in Nigeria, doesn't help, because in the long run, for democracy to function,
yeah,
you need the opposition party,
yeah,
you need the civil society, you need the media, because absolute power corrupts.
Absolutely.
And that's what you have seen in Nigeria today. Absolute power will destroy governance system. And when you look the indicators to assess a good governance, once you don't have those things, openness, transparency, people's voice, independent media, independent judiciary, when those things are absent in a democratic society, what you have is a poor governance. It's an authoritarian government.
What are your projections for 2025 in terms of government's policies and programs to right the wrongs that we're seeing today? Is it a cul-de-sac? Is there any way we can predict, or we can predict?
Yes, we can predict. You don't need to be, if you look the political arena and just looking at the political outlook, what will be different in 2025? If you look the opposition party today, they are not very organized. When you see the role that, like, people like Wike, whether Wike is APC or is PDP, you don't know.
No, they say it's not APC PDP or PDP APC.
So it's not good for our society. You know, it could be beneficial to the current ruling government now, but in the long run, it's not good for the society. Because, you need a decent politics to advance idea that can help grow the economy. But, this kind of blind, crude politics we play in Nigeria is very damaging to our system. And once you don't allow the opposition party to play their role, because what is the role of the opposition party? When you lose power temporarily, it's not a bad thing. It affords you the opportunity to reflect on the kind of policies you put in place that didn't work. And then you learn lessons from it. And in that process, you begin to look towards future power. So what do we expect to see in 2025? If PDP continue to play this kind of role they are playing today, you will not see something different. And then citizens, civil society, independent media. And if you look at the control of media in Nigeria today, the politicians are very smart. They control the media. And it is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. Even Berlusconi in those days in the 90s. In Italy, controlled the media. So the danger of it is that once you don't have independent voice, the government is forced to think that what they do reflects what the people think. And that's why we are encouraging government. We're encouraging the ruling government. Allow a space for independent criticism. Not criticisms that completely say, take the government out of power. No. It's criticisms that draws the government to areas where they are not doing well. I give you an example. Just a few weeks ago, I ran into a very prominent person in the government, of this current government. And when I met him, and I'm sure if perhaps he's watching this program, I commended him. I said, you guys are doing very well. I'm very, first I want to thank the governor. And I also said this publicly, that our friends, a very senior comrade, Ebugbodi Kaduna, who had an encounter with the Nigerian police and collapsed and died. And the governor heard when we had a little protest to the government house. In less than 24 hours, the governor went to the house of the widow. Just hearing how the governor responded, I was touched. And that, for me, that's humanity. Okay. That's that kind of approach to governance helps to put trust in the government. Okay. And when the government responded and said, look, there's nothing I can do at this point, but I can assure you there will be justice. But first, I'm giving job to the daughter. And I have now been told that the daughter has since resumed in the civil service. And then the woman also cried, the widow, that's the wife of Epa Ebugbodi, that, look, even we have not been paid our gratuity. And I have also been told now that the gratuity payment is now in advanced stage. That for me is something that is very touchy. But painfully, the police that committed this crime that led to the death of a Bogbodi, as we speak, haven't visited the commissioner of police for it's going to a month now. The report has not been released on what happened. And I'm even sure that the policeman who committed this crime, allegedly,
yeah,
his parents have been freed and nothing has happened. But because of the respect we have for the government and because of the respect we have for the governor, we have asked our people to take it easy and be calm.
Okay.
But it is not good for governance. When things happen, it is the responsibility of authority to respond to the issues.
And promptly.
And so in looking into 2025, for us, it's with hope as Christians.
Okay.
But beyond that,
yeah,
the Bible is very clear. It says faith without work is what?
Dead.
Is dead. Government must be willing to listen to opposition party. Government must be willing to listen to civil society.
Okay.
And dialogue must happen.
All right. Reverend Golo, thank you very much. We should have more time to engage these issues. But once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.